All right, let's bring in a panel for this. We have with us Democratic strategist Amisha Cross and Republican strategist Chris Robling joining us on the show. Good evening to both of you, and thank you for joining us on CTV News Channel. Appreciate it.
Good to be with you.
Amisha, let's start with you. I spoke with you yesterday and we were talking about what's expected to come of Joe Biden's speech. So my question to you, did he deliver what was expected, or did he do even better?
Depends on who you ask. And since you asked me, here's the answer. Joe Biden definitely delivered on what was expected. Democrats knew that last night was going to be a huge night for Joe Biden, one where he had to not only lay out his vision for America, but also really define and showcase who he is for Americans. I think that not many people were necessarily as aware of his policy goals as they should have been. But in addition to that, leaning in about COVID-19 and his plans to move us out of the Trump failed policies around the pandemic, but also talking about healthcare and the advancements and the buildup that he's going to do to build on what we saw from Obamacare. But I also think that one of the great things that he did was lean in on empathy, showcasing that, he suffered from great loss in his family himself, and he's risen above it. And it means something to talk to people, talk to an American population that is also suffering from loss in many ways right now, in addition to showcasing his vision and really laying out the reasons why this election is such an important one, why it's so dire for people to get out and actually support this vision and support him, because we're going down this authoritarian slide with Donald Trump that is against all things democracy. He is taking our Constitution and shredding it as we speak. And it's very difficult, I think, for someone like Joe Biden, who is a patriot, someone whose son served in the military, someone who believes so highly in American ideals, to be watching America go down this dark path. And he talked about light and what that actually looks like. And I think that he was trying to showcase to America just how traumatic this Donald Trump experience has been, but that all hope isn't lost. And they should still believe in our institutions. We just need new leadership moving forward. We just need new leadership to go forward. Chris, what's your take? Of course, strong support there coming in as expected for Joe Biden right now. But was this Joe Biden's best piece ever? I mean, all the critic about his vision, he being a unifier, his age, etc. Was he able to put all that at rest with the speech last night? Chris?
No, I don't think so. First, I'll say I take a backseat to no one in my admiration of Amisha, who I've known for years, and I think the world of her. But we disagree a lot, and you're going to see that right now. I think that Joe is I'm very sad to say this because I know he is a good guy. I know many people who know him, many people who have worked for him. I don't think that he is a bad person, but I think that he's a mess, and I don't think that he mounted the kind of case that people are looking for. And I'll tell you exactly what I mean by that. The Democratic Party and its activists despise Donald Trump with a fervor that, hasn't been seen since World War II and our national unity against, the forces of fascism. They hate Trump. But that's not enough to win. We saw that 4 years ago. They've got to get out to the reality. So you've got cities. I'm in Chicago. I'm on Michigan Avenue. There have been rioters here off and on for the last 2 weeks. And before that in May, not a word about that from Joe Biden. Joe Biden talked about Trump. He misquoted Trump on Charlottesville. That's now par for the course. I don't think that speaks well for him. But he's the guy who ran the convention that put an avowed anti-Semite, Linda Sarsour, in a key position in one of the policy conversations. These guys are not talking about the reality of the rioting. They're not talking about the reality. You had Biden and Obama for 8 years created about 2.5 million jobs. That's terrific. God bless them for every one of those jobs. God bless them. What we've seen in the last 3 months is a creation of 9 million jobs. And Joe stood up there like he spent the last 4 months in a basement and said, the economy won't come back. The economy is coming back. He just can't recognize that. So I think the Democratic Party is a mess. And sadly, Joe Biden represents its inability to get beyond Trump hate to connect with regular people and their concerns. And that's why Trump will be reelected.
Okay, Amisha, how would you respond to that? A lot is being said about Joe Biden, about the Democratic Party, all of it being in mess, and Joe Biden, of course, in the basement for 4 months, like we heard. What's your response to that?
Well, like Chris said, I know him very well. I do take homage to some of this because I find the argument problematic. One of the main issues, I think, is that there happens to be a confusion, I think, on the conservative side when it comes to what Joe Biden's speech was supposed to do. And also to the point of bringing people in. What we saw at this Democratic National Convention that hasn't been seen at a convention before is Republicans, lifelong Republicans, who actually got out and spoke about why they're voting for Joe Biden. Joe Biden said within his own speech that as an American president, you're not president just for those who voted for you. You're president for all Americans, and that he is trying to be as inclusive as possible in bringing people in and listen to ideas. And we see that throughout this process. I think that when Republicans bring up issues that we see in Chicago, that we see in Detroit, that we see in Memphis, that we see in Baltimore, for instance, as an African American who is from the South Side of Chicago, it breaks my heart to hear conservatives time and time again castigate those who are protesting in the streets because they want America to recognize that Black Lives Matter. They want to shut down white supremacy. They want to make sure that our systems are fair, equal, and that equity isn't something that we are fighting for since 1765, for people who have come to this nation as slaves and shackles to still feel like hundreds of years later, those shackles were not falling apart, that our voting rights are still being taken away from us, that our economic development, economic progress is still being thwarted. It frustrates me to have a Trump administration that calls these people unpatriotic, that acts as though they are acting against our democracy. No, they are protesting for the exact same reasons we've been protesting for decades. To actually get a slice of that American pie and be seen as human. And I don't think that there's anything wrong with that. I think there's something wrong with the Republican Party that continues to label these individuals as terrorists and act as though they are destroying cities. How about actually investing in and having conversations with those who live in the hardest hit communities in the country instead of continually talking about them as though they don't exist and that they're subhuman?
Well, there is no doubt there are deep divisions. There are deep divides on how people look at the situations that are in America. And that's why, of course, it's so important. The outcome of this election will tell us which side and where the people actually stand. But Chris, I want to ask you this. A lot has been said about the manner in which this convention was held and how it reached out to the people and how the message was heard, etc. What's your take on the week ahead? What are we expected to see from the Republicans? What's their strategy going to be? Are they rewriting the plan, looking at how successful or not this particular convention has been for the Democrats? Chris?
Well, first of all, I have protested. I may have protested with Amisha once or twice. I don't know what, maybe, but I can tell you, we love protesters in the United States, and we love our First Amendment, and everybody's welcome to protest. Nobody is welcome to riot and loot. And if you want to talk about how the Democratic Party has treated the inner cities, ask Kim Klacik of Baltimore, K-L-A-C-I-K. Kim Klacik is an African-American woman who is running for Congress. She happens to be a Republican. She has a view that's very different from Amisha's. Now, to your question, I hope the Republicans get out of their own way and do something smart. I thought that the Democrats did a pretty good job with their little tape pieces coming from around the country, going around the country for the nomination votes to say, we in Nevada support Joe Biden, all this. And I thought they did a pretty good job. And then they had their Democrats always have a lot of Hollywood stars who are supporting them. And some of them got on TV to be the moderator, like Julia Louis-Dreyfus was a moderator. And there was another woman earlier in the week. So they did, I thought, a pretty good job with this non-personal convention thing. And I hope Republicans can answer that because we have occasionally done well on TV and frequently not. So my fingers are crossed.
Okay, fingers are crossed. We'll have to wait and see how that plays out in the coming week. And we also know Democrats have a counter plan ready for every single day when we have the Republican convention on. We'll, of course, keep a close eye on all those developments. But for the moment, Democratic strategist Amisha Cross and Republican strategist Chris Robling, appreciate your time and thank you for joining us on CTV News Channel.
Good to be with you.
Thank you.